Bill Safer, and welcome to another episode of Hidden Treasures. Today we have a very special guest that you will meet in a minute, and I think you're going to learn a lot from him. In the beginning of the show, I like to do some hellos or shout-outs, and I would like to say hello to some of our viewers that contacted me. I want to say hello to Randy Whiting, president of the Whiting Cleaning Service, who watches the show. Thank you, Randy. And I want to say hello to Ross Shore from the Stoughton High School. They are state champions of the Destination Imagination State Competition. The team is called the Dream Team, and they produced a short skit and won the state finals, and now they are on to the global finals. So they've done Massachusetts proud, and good luck at the global title in Tennessee. And the team consists of Ross Shore, Jamal Husseini, Amanda Garland, Daria Mostova, Noah Schultz, Gigi DiNapoli, and Mr. Tim Norton from Stoughton High School, the Destination Imagination Advisor. Good luck, and I hope you bring back the gold for Massachusetts. And I also say hello to Howie and Sharon Shore, and Aurelio and Albin Matohu of Cafe Espresso Trattoria on Chandler Street in Worcester, who has WCCA TV on their TV. We're broadcasting to you from Worcester, Massachusetts, WCCA TV, channel 194, not 13 as it was before. I am very honored to introduce my very special guest, Tom Tomaszek, and he is an antiques expert. He was an appraiser on the Antiques Roadshow, and we're going to pick his brain to try to get you to get some tips and hints so you go out there and maybe you'll find a treasure. Tom, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Val. Pleasure.
I appreciate you coming.
My pleasure.
Now, Tom, first of all, do you have a website or address or store or anything?
I do sell on eBay at Tommy Thomas on eBay, TOMMYTOMAS, and I'm in 101A Antiques, which is on 101A in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire, Amherst, New Hampshire. Okay. And I am associated with the Antique Associates at West Townsend at 473 Main Street in West Townsend.
Okay. Now, is there a phone number if people want to contact you?
Yes, they can always contact me. My cell is the best. It's 508-868-8175, and feel free to call with any questions.
Okay. Do you still, I know I've seen you on the Antiques Roadshow on TV, and the guest last week was an appraiser as well for tools and scientific instruments. But these antiques, the antiques that you appraise, do you still go to people's homes?
I still do. Now with digital photography and the internet, sometimes it's much easier just to see a photograph of it, and you can tell what it is and give somebody the warning signs. Okay. Is it worth going after, or definitely it's not? But I do make estate calls. I do a lot of referrals. If it's not my expertise, I can refer them to people whose expertise it is. If they want to sell, that's fine. If they want to go to auctioneer, we can put them in place with various people that are experts and honest people.
So our viewers out there, can they call you also for just do you do solid appraisals?
Yes, I do. Okay. I do. My specialties, I kind of niche specialties. I do a lot in art. I do a lot in militaria. I do a lot in antique jewelry, estate jewelry, and political antiques and ephemera. That's my specialty. Excellent.
Now, I know a lot of antiquing comes from experience. I mean, there's no better teacher than experience. But I also believe, as I mentioned to you the other day, that I think New England is one of the best areas in the United States to hunt for antiques because of our seaports and what was going in and out. What do you think? What is your favorite state to antique?
It's a hard question to answer because they're all my favorite states. You can find a hidden gem in all the 6 New England states. Bottom line is, you can't look always for the obvious. You may find the best gem in the most secretive place where you don't know where it is. I've bought in all 6 states. I've bought some major winners in all 6 states. And I bought some major losers in all 6 states.
We all have those experiences.
We all have those.
And I know that you do a lot of different things, but you brought some things to show the viewers. What did you bring today?
What I brought is, I just want to kind of focus on the market changes taking place out there.
Okay.
Most people think if you buy an antique, it's always going to go up in value, and that's not always the case. I always say buy for the item, buy what you like, and buy it for the enjoyment, not always for the investment. Some items, such as famous artwork, you can buy for the investment, but most don't. And I brought some items just to kind of reflect that. And the first item is this piece right here. This is a pewter whale oil lamp.
We'll put this
It's done in America, probably around 1840, 1850. All the New England states made these.
Whale oil as in sperm whale
That's
oil?
right. You put the oil inside. It's missing the burner. It had a little burner with two little fins coming out where the wicks went. But back in the 1970s and 1960s and even the 80s, a burner like this in this condition would sell for about $125. And today they're on the market for about $30.
That much of a drop?
That much of a drop because the market keeps changing as people age, of new items coming in vogue either by other cultures or by a TV article or a magazine article. Things change, so I always say be very careful. And buy what you like. And when you do buy what you like, always try to buy the best in that category. Because what we have found in the last 10 years, 20 years, the top end items in every category are breaking records. The middle of the road is really falling behind.
So things, people think that antiques can only go up, but I see that they can go down.
And they do.
And they do.
I have many items that I were offered 5 figures for.
Wow.
That now I'm lucky to get 4 figures for. So, and also reproductions come out, and reproductions hurt the value sometimes of the old stuff because people can't tell. One different example is this piece right here. What has taken place during the last 20 years is with the emergence of the Far East, China, Thailand, Burma, India, Japan, Korea, a lot of Asian antiques have really gone up in value. So these are the hidden gems that 30, 40 years ago you could buy for nothing because nobody knew them. That today command very large values, and that's a really something to look at.
And,
real trend.
and this is in particular, what is this?
This is a burial urn. It's actually Song Dynasty, which is around 1100 to 1200 AD. So you also have to, they always say, all that glitters is not gold. Well, in this case, it looks like a piece of pottery that was hand-thrown 10, 20 years ago, and it's 800 years old. So looks can be deceiving. You really need to do your homework. And this is typical of a burial urn for central China of someone that's richer, more money. And it has the 12 seasons of the year, the zodiac symbols. It has the dragon chasing the pearls. And if anybody's interested in Chinese art or Asian art, they should really do their homework up front because the culture is different. And the more you know about the culture, the more you know what differentiates a so-so piece from something that's fabulous.
So, like I've seen a few Chinese pieces over the years that some of them look absolutely gorgeous and they sell for $20. Other ones are covered with dirt and they go for $10,000.
Exactly right. You can't.
You just don't know.
I shared a story earlier with you of going to Brimfield Flea Market in the fall and buying what was sold to me by an Asian specialist as a soapstone toggle of a little Fu lion. And later on, I found out after I sold it on eBay for like $175 that it wasn't soapstone. And it didn't look like anything because it was in the ground so much. It had all kinds of verdigris on it. It was actually white jade, imperial quality, and it was Ming Dynasty. And whoever bought it actually knew the river which it came from. And it's worth probably around $8,000 to $10,000. So you're right. Just because it looks nice doesn't mean that's valuable. Some items can be so ugly they get thrown out, and those are the valuable ones. So do your homework. Read as much as you can. Study auction catalogs. Go to auctions. And I always tell people, go to the high-end auctions. What you want to do is you want to feel the best of the best and see it.
Isn't it, like you say, it's also for learning, not necessarily for buying.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's experience. And once you see the $10,000 piece, it's easy to differentiate from the $1,000 piece and from the $10 piece. But unless you know that, it's hard to tell.
Right, right. Now, would you think that people, I know that a lot of people tell me, what should I look for at the flea markets? What's good? What's bad? And it's very difficult because there's so many items out there. But I always try to give them some basic information. And what would your tips be?
It's a very good question because there are two types of collectors and dealers. One is a specialist where they just specialize, which is a good thing. You become a specialist, like in the case of coins.
Right.
You became a collector of flying eagle cents. And you know everything about them. So you can go to the flea market or go to the coin show and outsmart the smartest dealers. Then there's a generalist. Generalist is someone that knows a little about a lot of things, but they're not experts. What I always say is try to find those items that are in vogue, that are really being looked at today, where you could find a sleeper, what they call a sleeper, something that's very underpriced, that's worth a lot of money. Asian antiques can be that. But again, you have to know. I have many people bring me Asian antiques, and some of them are very old, they're worth very little money. This piece, although it's 800 years old, is worth only a couple, $300. But you can get another piece that's only 50 years old that's worth $5,000 because it's made by some famous maker or technique.
Things that may have a royal connotation years ago would be more valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the more you know about the culture, the better off you are. Study the culture. Study the religions. The more you know about the Buddhist religion or the Hindu religion, the more you're going to be able to differentiate the meaning of what these emblems mean.
I know that I had a gentleman that collected Asian. He was telling me the meaning in Japanese of dragons, that the 5 claws or the 4 claws, how much the difference makes, what it means. Would you suggest that people start off collecting one field and then branch off later, learn everything you can about the one field, and then go general?
Bill, I would. I say become kind of a specialist and focus on something you like. And also, it's good to go to museums. You go to the Worcester Art Museum, study the items. You can get up close, and it'll tell you a lot, so that you might find a sleeper. One item that you might find as a sleeper is paintings. Paintings and artwork have great opportunity. And this particular one is a watercolor, Dutch, late 1700s, late 18th century. It's signed in here in Dutch. It looks like it's in a horrible frame. Many people would pass over that because they would say it's a print, because the frame is kind of shabby. It's not. It's actually a watercolor, and you could buy something like this for $30, $40, $50. It's probably worth $300 or $400. But the upside is some paintings go for $50,000 that I bought for $50. And you also, in the case of art, if you're buying it as non-investment, buy what you like. If you're buying it for an investment, study, because it's changed a lot. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everybody wanted American primitive paintings, folk art, Wallace Nutting prints, Currier and Ives prints. Nobody wants that today. Don't get me wrong, the best of the best, they still, but not the ordinary. Now they want mid-century, modern art. So you have to learn about modern art. And some of them may say, well, I don't like modern art. If you're buying to resell to make money, you don't have to like it. You have to know it. Right. That's the difference.
Well, look at all, speaking about New England being a great place to hunt for treasures, we had some very famous artists in New England. I mean, artists that can command hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them even rivaling the European artists. Yes. But I hear stories and stories and stories about real ones being sold for next to nothing and fake ones being bought for thousands of dollars. So what tip would you give? Because you know paintings. I don't know that much about art because I told you a story. I shared a story with you how me and about 4 other people walked by a multi-$1,000 painting that was selling for about $30 at the old Auburn flea market. I didn't know anything about art. I just said, boy, that's a hideous-looking woman. But that didn't necessarily turn me off, but the frame was broken. Yeah. It was on the ground, but all that glitters isn't just gold.
Correct.
And someone came by that was an art dealer, bought it for $30 and sold it for about $40,000. Is there any tips you can give people for paintings?
Yes, absolutely. And those stories happen all the time. In the last couple of years, there was a Whistler bought in a shop in the state of Connecticut for no money. That was worth a lot of money, and it sat there for months because someone had matted over like this, and this is why I want to show you this, matted over some of the signature of the butterfly, so you didn't know it was a Whistler. It looked like an unsigned painting. This painting looks like it's unsigned. The signature is actually under the mat. That's why I brought this particular one to show you, Bill. When you're buying art,
show that quickly.
First of all, you're not buying the frame. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of money to be made in antique frames, but that's another specialty. So don't always look at the frame. The original frame could have been broken, and it could have been put into a plastic frame. I've had paintings that are worth a lot of money that are in a frame, but the first thing I do is throw the frame away, take the painting out.
So don't be dissuaded. If it's a crappy frame, a broken frame, doesn't matter. Right?
Absolutely. If it's grungy or dirty, it's got to be clean. It's been put away in the attic. Right. Who knows? The mat. When you get a painting that you suspect it could be good, what I always do is I go home, I remove the mat to see what's written underneath. A lot of times there'll be a signature on the back of the painting. There'll be a description. There'll be a date. This particular one, you can't see it, but it's under here. Is actually all the writing. In the case of the Whistler, it was under the mat. So you really got to focus in on the artwork itself. Take it out, look it over, hold it up to the light, see if the paper's watermarked, Look with a loop. I always carry a loop with me, which is a small microscope.
Oh, I always carry one myself, yep.
Look to see if it's painted or if it's printed. Learn to tell the difference. See if it's watermarked. Hold it up to the light. See if you can see a watermark like a stamp.
Right.
Look for the telltale signs. And then if it does look like it has a good shot, bring it to an expert that's an expert in that field. Bring it to a museum. If it's 50s, bring it to someone that deals in mid-century. If it's primitive, bring it to someone that knows primitive art.
So even if you have to do a little bit of driving, it's worth it just to find out something.
You don't want to make a mistake and sell a $50,000 painting for $500 to see it on the cover of the New Town Bee or the Mean Antique Digest. Look, it was just discovered, and that was mine. You don't want to be there.
It's the difference of having money to go out to eat or having money to buy a beach house up in Maine, you know.
We've all done it.
Yeah.
I've had my items.
I've done it, yeah.
I've had my items on the cover of the New Town Bee, unfortunately, not when I owned it.
Right.
So,
you know, at flea market, talking about loops, you meet a lot of loops at some of these flea markets, and sometimes they profess that the articles they have are 100% genuine. And I'll tell you a quick story. There was a gentleman appraising out in Sturbridge. He has about 4 books out. I cannot remember his name, but there was a line, and he was the $5. So being sort of a trickster when it comes to antiques to test someone's knowledge, I brought something I knew what it was. It was an 18-karat gold enameled Swiss watch key that was made to be worn on the watch chain when they did that for decoration. So I get up to him. He didn't have a loop. First of all, who goes, like my grandmother would say, who goes to a thing with an antiques without a loop? You know, it's like looking at a car without lifting up the hood.
Right.
So he said that this is just a tourist trinket. He didn't look at it with the loop. He quickly scanned it. And so I know that he knew as much about antiques as I know about building a nuclear power plant, which is nothing. So you have to be careful because they tell you that they profess to know all this stuff.
A good antique deal I just reached in my pocket will have a loop.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and typically I recommend a 10-power loop. You don't want it too strong. 10 power is good.
Yeah.
Always look. Carry these with you. A good light. If you're going to a flea market in the morning really early, you want to have a light because you want to look at this in the light. The other thing with paintings, you want to black light them a lot of times. If you black light a painting, it'll tell you if it's been repaired.
Really?
It tells you a lot. That's how a lot of museums check to see if a painting's painted over another one. They black light it, and it will show the different paints. If you black light an oil painting and it's been repainted, it'll fluoresce, and it shows you it's been repainted.
So you mean you could have a relatively common painting, but underneath a Renoir or something?
That happens all the time.
Wow.
In the New Britain Art Museum in New Britain, Connecticut, there's one painting there where actually you can see where one painting is over another one because the artist didn't really like the first one, and that may be the valuable one.
Can they remove the top
Yes,
paint?
they can. Carefully, they can because they'll dissolve it with acetones and very. Now, this is not an amateur job. Anytime you get, that's another thing we should mention. 2 things. Don't judge a book by its cover. When you see somebody and they can say, well, he's kind of scrubby and all, he doesn't have very good stuff. Let me have the best stuff. So don't do that. And the other thing is, when you buy a painting or something, study it, learn a little bit about the artist. Know a little bit about it, because the more you know about the period he painted, style he painted, the more you become an expert. And the closer you are to the expert, the better off you are.
Well, there was, you brought up something that I was thinking of before, and that is there was a woman who, on the Antiques Roadshow, who had a Picasso, but it was not a Picasso painting, it was a ceramic item. And she had it hanging by her stove for 30, 40 years. It was covered with grease, and her friend looked at it and said, you know, this says Picasso. She said, I know, but it's probably fake. He said, maybe it isn't. Let's do some research and see if he did any ceramic work, which it turned out he did. They had it cleaned, and I think it was appraised for about $15,000. She bought it at a church sale.
It happens all the time, and with paintings and artwork, you can find that even more. I'm very familiar with the Picasso plates. Most people would never think, Picasso, why would he do plates? And you also, what you're going to do is you always look at places that are very inconspicuous. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, in Massachusetts, I was with a dealer. That was out of the Milford area, but it was in, not in that area, it was in Dorchester area. And we went to a shop, give you an example, and this person dealt in artwork. And they had all the paintings. But in back, they had a little sub shop, And that was the second-hand area. And me and this gentleman, this expert dealer, we went out back, and he said to me, Tom, could you please come out here? This goes the opposite way. He says, there's a print out here, but the print has an awful nice frame. Why would they put a $10 print in a $500 frame? And the dealer wanted $30, $40 for it at the time. This is back now in the 70s.
Right.
So I went back and I looked and I said, that frame is a very good frame. And I knew the frame maker. Frames can be very valuable.
So frames themselves.
No, very valuable. I knew the frame maker and I said, there's something to do with this. It was under glass. And they don't typically put oil paintings in the glass, but this was an oil painting in the glass. And I looked at it, and he was, and I knew, I went to parochial school, so I knew what was going on.
Right.
It was Holy Saturday. It was a procession of the church and the priests and the altar boys. And I said, this is great. And this thing was huge. And proceeded to buy it for $40 and sold it like a month later for $3,800. This is back in the 70s. That painting today is probably worth $40,000 to $50,000.
Imagine.
That was bought from a shop that specializes in artwork. So just to tell you, there could be a hidden gem anywhere.
Right. Just because they specialize in it doesn't mean. I learned something interesting. I'm sure you know, but I didn't know this. Somebody had brought in a Renoir etching, and I thought that a Renoir etching was a Renoir etching. There was no differentiation. But the expert said, if this was what they called the first state,
that's right.
means that probably Renoir himself
That's right.
ran that off on the machine to make the etching, carve the wax, maybe even the second state. But then they said as you get into the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, that etching becomes kind of dulled, becomes kind of muddy when you print it. And it still had value. This woman had an etching that she thought was a second state. It was more like an eighth or ninth estate. So they valued it at about $1,500. But the man said if that had been a first state, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. I never knew that.
That happens all the time.
Really?
And you have to be a real expert to know that. Because what they do is sometimes they'll repair it. Every time you make like an engraving or an etching, and they have a press, like in the case of the stone, where they're making
Making the etching.
etching itself. What would happen is it wears it. So sometimes they'll touch them up to make them crisper. And people knew what they did to touch them up, put the little lines in and all. So it takes a real expert, but you're right. You can get a Renoir same scene, or an Albert Dürer, famous for etchings. You can get one for $800, or you can get one for $35,000. Same scene, first stage, second stage, right? Because when you look at the third, fourth stages, it's not as crisp. It's not. And the purists, when I say buy the best,
They want the
if you can afford the first stage, buy the first stage. That's the one that's going to go up in value a lot more than the eighth
other.
stage.
And they say that the second state was probably corrected if there was anything that the artist didn't like by the artist himself.
Correct.
And then, of course, he could have died, and then years later they do a 15th pressing.
Exactly.
And,
Until the plate breaks.
until the plate breaks.
Exactly
yeah.
correct. No,
So it
you're
was
right.
interesting. So I went down, believe it or not, it's not my specialty, but I went down and went on the internet, did some research, because yard sale season is basically all year in Massachusetts, outdoors in the nice weather, indoors at church sales and those other things. And there are treasures to be found. I mean, like I was talking with you before the show, maybe we should write a book on, these experiences, because I have so many, and you have so many, of either buying something for nothing and getting a lot of money, or paying a lot of money for something that turns out to be nothing. So
It happens all the time, Bill. And it continues to happen. So many people say, oh, the best days are over. Not necessarily so. There's still many treasures and many attic cellars, storage areas that are going to come out. Why not?
right. It was just like the gentleman in the patent office. I think 1872, he said, there is nothing else that can be patented. Anything that is patented and invented, that's it. There's going to be no more. Well, that statement went down as a real blunder in history.
Yes.
But now, another piece of advice I give people, and I wanted to get your feeling on it, is I said, even if you don't know the item that well, if it's $1 or $2 or $3, get it anyway. I mean, because the worst you've lost is $3 or $4. Don't say, well, that painting's $5 and it might not be real. Yeah, but if it's real, it could be a $50,000 painting. What are your feelings on that?
100%. Most of the things that I've bought a lot of things, Bill. that I've paid $10,000 or $5,000 or $3,000, lost $2,000 and $3,000. I don't regret those. My memory always goes to the ones that I regretted not buying, where I could have bought it for $200 that I found out later on it could be worth $4,000. Mentally, if you don't buy it, it works on you. It's not the monetary thing. I say if you're in, and also work on first instincts. Typically, when you walk into a flea market or a yard sale or estate sale, you have an instinct. And it's the first instinct. Either that's good or bad. You could talk yourself out of it. That's when it gets dangerous.
Yeah.
If you can afford it, you want to take a chance, it's like a lottery ticket. Buy it.
So don't second guess yourself until you walk away.
It's better than a lottery ticket because a lottery ticket is all random. Your mind is telling you whether to buy this or not. And always go by your first impression. And don't gamble more than you can afford. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, like you see a painting and it's $2,000, say, I'll take a chance. No.
No.
But I've taken a chance on many things. And like we said, you cannot focus on the things that sold for much more money. You have to focus on your successes because if you focus on, I lost this, I could have got this, why didn't I get this, you'll drive yourself into depression.
Hindsight's 20/20, and it will work on you. Believe me, it has.
Well, Tom, we are coming to the end of our show, and any last words of wisdom for the flea marketers out there?
I would say get out early. The early bird does get the worm, and know as much as you can before you go out. Arm yourself with the tools of the trade, the loop, the flashlight, and reference books. Carry them.
Yeah, I was out early one time, and unfortunately, all I got was the worm, and it was the real worm. I didn't get. But your advice is great, and I want to thank you for coming to the show. You've graced us with your presence, and it was an honor to have you. And I think the viewers, using this information, will go out and find a treasure, maybe 2, maybe 3, and look at those paintings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for coming.
Thank you.
That was great.
Yeah, they go well.